This is Charles Darwin, clue number 1. Charles Darwin was born in the Mount in Shrewsbury, England in 1809. He died in the Down House in Down, England in 1882. Charles Darwin was buried at Westminster Abbey in London, England. This was a big deal because typically famous people and royalty are buried there. Charles Darwin had many different education adventures along his way to becoming a naturalist and a person that is known for evolution. The first educational experience he had was in medicine. He was trying to follow his dad's footsteps, but he quickly realized that medicine wasn't for him when he couldn't stand seeing surgeries or the sight of blood. Next, he tried to become a clergyman. Faith was very important to him. Now, this was very conflicting for him because science and evolution went against his faith. However, this was his main works throughout his career. So he had this internal conflict throughout his whole entire life. During his time as a clergyman, he also learned about botany and beetles. He had one of the most profound beetle collections known to science back then. And this eventually landed him a job on the HMS Beagle as a naturalist. Darwin contributed to evolution by introducing his theory of evolution through natural selection. He came up with a 4-part summarizing theory. The first part of natural selection is variation, and that just means that organisms exhibit individual variation in appearance and behavior. So if you look at the butterflies to the right, they're all different colors, but they also have some similarities such as body structure of 2 wings and a thorax. The first part to natural selection is variation, and those are the differences in appearance and behavior within a population. If you look to the right, the butterflies, they look very similar, but they're different colors. This would be one example of variation. The second part of natural selection is inheritance. Some traits are consistently passed on from parent to offspring. These traits are considered heritable. So take a look at the 2 dogs below. A lot of heritable traits there. They get passed from parent to offspring, generation after generation. Some other traits are influenced by environmental conditions and show weak heritability. If you take a look at Darwin's finches to the right, you could see that even though they came from one ancestral species, they have turned into several different species, and these changes were brought by environmental factors such as food. Part 3 of natural selection is survival of the fittest. And when you think about this, you have to think that most populations have more offspring than what the resources can support. And this leads into competition where organisms compete in order to stay alive. And that's the whole idea of survival of the fittest. The strongest individuals within a population will live and the weakest ones will die. So each generation will experience substantial mortality. So think about the number of eggs within a turtle clutch. There are up to about 110 eggs per clutch and 2 to 8 clutches of eggs per year. Now, if all of those eggs led to viable offspring, we would have a shortage of resources. However, 90% of the eggs will hatch, but only 1% of those eggs will live to sexual maturity. So they'll die within the first year of age. Part 4 is fitness, and when we think of fitness, we need to think of those individuals that possess the traits that are well suited for finding the local resources, water, food, shelter, and that are able to defend for themselves will contribute more to the next generation. So when you think of this, you want to think of adaptation. For example, on the right we have the lizards. The initial population of brown was 80%, 10% red, 10% black, and as the environment changed, it also created a shift in the lizard population. So over generation 10 to 20 to 30, you're seeing that the red died out because they were not fit enough to last, and the black-colored lizard was gaining popularity. That could be because of environmental change, but maybe that environmental change increased their fitness. And you could see that the brown population is going down because maybe that environmental change or environmental factor caused the brown lizard to be less fit. So those are the 4 parts of natural selection according to Darwin.